Chapter is an important chapter. Only 5 verses, but very deep. The play of Gunas and the delusion of doership.
प्रकृतेः क्रियमाणानि गुणैः कर्माणि सर्वशः अहंकार विमूढात्मा कर्ताहमिति मन्यते.
Very important verse. Actions are entirely done. Karmani sarvashah kriyamanani, by the modes of nature. Prakrite gune. Modes are gunas. Actions, all actions are entirely done by the play of the gunas. The deluded ego self, ahankara vimudhatma, imagines I am the doer. Karta aham iti manyate. Powerful line. This is the insight referred to. You actually see it, that there are only 3 actors in this whole universe, in the manifest universe. Who are the 3 actors? They come in disguises. Tamas, Rajas and Sattva. And they possess you and make you act in certain ways and say, how dare you do it? You are not able to see the Rakshas entering or the Pishaja exiting. But a person with that ability to see, in Gita they say, Yaha pashyati saha pashyati. Who can see this all the time? He knows the game. So he is not fooled. And that's a powerful, that is true insight. Okay. The notion I am the doer is something that we tend to take for granted and which we seem to have no doubt about unless we ask the deeper question, who am I? The answer to this forms the core of true self-realization. All identities pertain to mutable characteristics, asat, of a self that changes in time. Yet we know, underlying all these changes, there seems to be a constant I that does not change over time. The very fact that we observe these changes to our bodies, sensations, thoughts, emotions, desires, suggests that they are external to us. My body, my belief, my desire, my anger, etc. They are objects, whereas who I am is the true subject who is aware of these happenings. So it is that who, in a sense, is free from all that occurs. That I, the pure subject, does not really do anything. It is not the doer, karta. It is that which is aware and conscious of all the doings. It is the essence of the embodied spirit, dehi, in an individual being, which acts through its instruments, physical, vital and mental. These instruments are part of the larger instrumentation of nature. Read that. These instruments of an apparent individual are part of the larger instrumentation of nature, Prakriti, with its diverse and multiple organic and inorganic components. It is this totality that we simply describe as nature. We like to believe that man is different from nature, so we use the word man-made as separate from nature. We say artificial, but from the nature's point of view, there is only one nature. Even man-made is nature-made. We like to believe that man is different from nature, our frame of reference typically limited to lower nature. This, of course, is a delusion. If the workings of lower nature are examined carefully, we know that the human body, sourced in nature, goes back to nature after death. Man is just a different kind of animal with a more evolved mental instrumentation. All instruments, without exception, are of nature. What makes man different and superior to other sentient beings is the capacity for more intelligent and creative living, and especially self-awareness and self-realization, which most of us don't bother about. We live in sin. Part of this realization is the ability to discriminate between subject and object. This implies stepping back from our habitual object-centered awareness into the wideness of silence and seeing all objects truly as objects coming and going. The true self remains untouched by all such happenings. Eventually we discover that everything, without exception, has its source in the one supreme divine, Purushottama or Ishvara Shakti. However, in order to ascend to this realization, we first need to nurture the ability of separating the witnessing spirit, Purusha, from the actions of nature, Prakriti. This will help us clearly appreciate the notion, I am the doer, is just a delusion. In this process, we become increasingly centered in our true identity with Purusha, thereby gaining freedom from the entrapment of lower nature. Ahankara vimudhatma kartaham iti manyate. Remember that. That's a very important line. Now I want to give you a bit of Buddhist wisdom which points to the same thing. The contents of the conscious mind are always and only mental constructs, fabrications that come from information processing by unconscious sub-minds. So there is no me, my mind. There are hajar things going on, mostly unconscious. These fabrications include not only a model of reality, but the ego self as well. The ego self itself is a fabrication. The sensory and discriminating minds. So there are many unconscious minds, but broadly two categories: sensory, the five senses, the Jnanendriyas, and the discriminating mind, the thinking, emotional mind. Interacting through consciousness condition each other. Every event, large or small, internal or external, makes its mark, and repeated events produce a kind of habit energy accumulating over time. That's how the samskara gets formed. The mind system creates an entire world from its own mental representations, which it constantly adds to and revises. The basic enduring sense of self, of a separate doer of deeds and experiencer of events, is nothing more than a useful but fictional construct of the narrating mind. The mind that's speaking to you all the time, the commentator, the narrating mind, reified, reinforced by the discriminating mind. So there's a nice model. It's a model. It's very difficult to map these things. But you'll find that if this is our mind, most of it is unconscious. This is where the consciousness happens, where information is exchanged. You have the five senses, that which you get from smelling, which you get from tasting. This is your entire somatosensory, which is touch plus everything else. This is visual and this is auditory, what you can listen. This Jnanendriyas give you information. That information becomes accessible. You smell something you don't like, you immediately react to it. So your hedonic feelings of pleasure and pain are immediately triggered. Some memory may be triggered. You may also be thinking, like Einstein. And underneath all, there is one narrating mind on whom everything is centered. And slowly you believe that is something permanent, and that's your ego. The narrating mind is a sub-mind of the much larger discriminating mind. However, it has a very special role and importance on its own. It takes in all the information projected in consciousness by other sub-minds. This is a huge area where you can do research. But the best place to do research is your own mind. You can see this is constantly going on. You will find a lot of activities non-stop happening, and things are getting projected onto a screen, and you become aware only when it's projected. That's why we are restless. But if you watch what's coming on the screen, you will understand that a lot of underhand activity, subterranean activity is non-stop happening. Even in deep sleep it's happening. Which is why we sometimes get these breakthroughs. Let's say you're doing referencing and you don't remember the name of someone who you get fed up and you go to sleep. But then in your subconscious something is working. Morning you get up and you get the name. Yes or no? Slowly you stop ignoring the commentary. There's a running commentary going on everything. Mostly non-stop nonsense. You needn't give it attention. Then you'll find in the silence you can see much more clearly. You can also see impersonally. You can also see through other people's eyes. You understand? Otherwise you're locked into one perspective and you're reinforcing it and you're finally making it into a reality. The narrating mind takes the ongoing flow of information in consciousness and organizes it into a meaningful story around an imaginary entity called I. Vijnata, that's your name, right? So Vijnata becomes a reality, which discriminating mind then mistakes for an actual individual rather than a product created by a collection of subminds. It's as if a room full of people all named Vijnata were having a debate, and all you received were reports, that Vijnata said this and Vijnata said that. You understand? You are actually made up of many parties, and they don't always agree. This was one rare moment. Sarva bhavena, you said wow. Every part of your being said wow. Normally no. Normally there's a love-hate relationship to everything. This is from the Mahayana tradition of the Buddha. Just like waves on the ocean are stirred by wind and dance across its surface, never stopping for a moment, the ocean of the unconscious is stirred by the winds of external events and made to dance with the waves of consciousness in all their multiplicity. Karma accumulates in the unconscious through the reflections of the narrating mind and the volitions of the discriminating mind from a world that's given form by the five sensory mind. So this is happening spontaneously. You have only one choice of seeing it and not identifying. That's breakthrough. That's insight. The play of the gunas in Prakriti. Okay, I think time is short, so let me go straight to the verse.
Tattvavittu mahabaho guna karma vibhagayoho guna guneshu vartanta iti matva na sajjate.
The uniqueness of the ancient Sankhya philosophy from which the theory of the gunas originates lies in its attempt to simplify, generalize and universalize all the operations of nature in terms of just three modes or qualities called gunas. From our knowledge of physics, we know that any color can be considered as a unique combination of the three primary colors, red, green and blue. In a similar way, any quality in nature can be considered to be a unique combination of the three gunas of Prakriti. But what's the difference? You can't really have this analogy. No. You are mixing there and here also. No, here also you cannot say better and all. All three are needed. Okay. While a color can remain stable for a considerable period of time, any particular combination of the three gunas defining any being or occasion lasts but for a short duration. It is ever vulnerable to getting affected by any stimulus, resulting in a dynamic interplay among the gunas, altering the combination. Very vulnerable to change. In fact, actually changes very fast. No doubt the stability is relatively longer in material things that are predominantly tamasic, like matter, unlike rajasic impulses that last very briefly. Okay, now this, but Arjuna, he who knows the truth, Tattvavit tu Mahabaho, of how gunas are related to karma, guna karma vibhagayoha, and how gunas interact with gunas, guna guneshu vartanta. It's a game. Remains unattached knowing this. Iti matva na sajjate. Guna guneshu vartanta. Powerful line to remember. It's a game of the guna playing with the gunas. Okay, next we've seen this, the qualities broadly, but we'll go quickly into each one of them in detail. Why is tamas said to be a double negative? Anybody? Tamas is the opposite of rajas in a sense. Tamas is also the opposite of sattva. Why? Anybody? See, this is the inactive. It's passive. So it's the opposite of rajas, which is active. It's also a state of darkness, of ignorance, which is the opposite of light, of knowledge. Is it clear? So that's why it's a double negative. Okay, next. Even work culture, sometimes we feel tamasic, which means no motivation to do anything. Have we not felt this often? No drive to work for any meaningful purpose other than survival. Lazy, negligent, dull, mechanical, routine, despondent. Normal way to live, right? Stupid way to live. But then sometimes we are like we can't take rest. We are hyperactive. Desire-driven motivation, struggle to achieve results, efforts driven by self-centered ambition and desire to succeed, vulnerable to the carrot and stick approach, joy depends on external reward, fearful of punishment, prone to envy, rivalry. That's a normal way of living, right? This is the work culture in all organizations, and they use a danda to make us work. And you get promotion, you feel happy. For us, we know only this way of living. Tamasic, Rajasic. But there's something higher, Sattvic, conscience-driven motivation, doing one's duty, working for the greater good as perfectly as possible, not worrying about the fruit of action, experiencing joy from within. But there's something higher than this. That's what we'll see later. Next topic, the ego self, ahankara, a creation of prakriti. When I assert that I am the doer, who is this I referred to? Clearly it is not the true self. This I also cannot be entirely an impersonal prakriti, acting through the three gunas. There is a personality involved, an individuality that I associate with myself, which makes me identifiably different from others. The Gita describes this personality operating in the field of the lower nature as ahankara. Okay. Now, ahankara, we've already discussed this. This is the true self. The purushas are here. This is the persona, the mask with which we engage with the outer world. When it is dominated by tamas, by the physical, we say it is predominantly tamasic ahankara. When it's dominated by rajas, we say rajasic ahankara. When it's dominated by sattva, we say sattvic ahankara. And the challenge is to go within, go beyond, realize a true self, go inward and go upward. Fear, want and pride are the predominant motivations of the ego self. What it wants always in me is to establish that I am, that I have and I know more than others. This gives a sense of self-esteem and pride. Okay, quickly. Guna of tamas.
Tamastvajnanajam vidhi mohanam sarvadehinam pramadalasya nidrabhi tannibadhnati bharata.
Know that tamas, born out of ignorance, tamah tu atnyan najam vidhi, deludes, confounding all beings. Mohanam sarvadehinam, by negligence, laziness and sleepiness. Pramada alasya nidrabhihi, it binds and enslaves all beings, Arjuna. Tat nibatnati bharata. You know that. That's why you procrastinate. You don't want to get up. So we are all familiar with tamas. We needn't describe this in further detail. A big description is here. You can go through it. I'm not spending time on this. I just want to talk about collective. In terms of the collective, the passive mentality of tamas manifests in the form of quiet acceptance of the control by the community. Page 136. As evidenced in primitive tribes in early human evolution, the tamasic individuality is too weak to react against established creeds with the intention of creating a new order for progressive change. For this reason, the belief in religious dogma as something inviolable and the tendency towards fanaticism and fundamentalism are seen as strong tamasic traits. Very important to note. In every religion you have this. In Sri Aurobindo's words, the primitive community is therefore stationary. The individual exists in it not as an individual but as an undetachable fragment of the whole. The social organization, even at its best, is in type and level on a par with that of the beehive and the ant hill. Tamasic ahankara is therefore reflected not in the identification and development of a unique individuality, but rather that of the group, the tribe, the religion, the cult, the community or nation. This is nature's way of ensuring conservatism and stability of the collective, even though this may be at the cost of growth, for which nature has designed the other two gunas of rajas and sattva. So, rajas.
रजोरागात्मकं विद्धि तृष्णासङ्गसमुद्भवम् तन्निबध्नाति कौन्तेय कर्मसङ्गेन देहिनम्.
Know that rajas has the nature of passion. Raja, raga, atmakam vidhi, arising from craving, thirst and attachment. Trishna sanga samudbhavam. It binds and enslaves the embodied soul. Tat nibhatnati dehinam, by inducing attachment to action. Karma sangena kaunte. You are restless, you can't stop. You are a workaholic. Or you constantly seek entertainment. These are typical rajasic traits. Trishna sanga samudbhavam. Karma sangena, you get bound. Okay. Again, let's go to the collective. In terms of the collective, the active impulsion of rajas manifests in bringing about change for better or for worse. Many activists are driven by the rajoguna. They tend to be tireless crusaders looking for a cause. This, of course, can create much trouble for others and upset the existing system. Can you recognize some people like this? Activists who are waiting for a cause to. Some of them end up becoming chief ministers and so on. While tamas prefers to conserve the status quo, rajas seeks to destroy it. There is a rebellious, anarchic spirit about it. It's such people good to be on the opposition. On the government, you don't know what to do because you'll wreck your own government. It happens, right? There is a rebellious, anarchic spirit about it. While on the one hand, this can serve the useful purpose of breaking down obsolete and dysfunctional system so as to create a new order, on the other hand, it can either be destructive for the sake of destruction or not be able to converge and complete the task of establishing a new order. The rajasic urge manifests primarily in the individual, and the rajasic ahankara is not much concerned about the collective as evidenced in history. In Sri Aurobindo's words, the rajasic individuality was not likely to accept the traditional sanction, the communal aim, as a satisfying aim and a binding sanction. The more and more he developed, the more and more strongly he would crave for the satisfaction of its expanding individual desires, ideas, activities, with less and less regard to the paramount importance of social stability. So it is said, power tends to corrupt and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Okay, last one. Sattva.
Sattvam nirmalatvat prakashakamanāmayam sukhasangena badhnāti gnānasangena chānagha.
Among the gunas, it is sattva that is pure. Tatra sattvam nirmalatvat. For it is luminous and free from any taint. Prakashakam anamayam. But it also binds. Sattva also binds. How? By attachment to joy. Sukha sangena badhnati. An attachment to knowledge, Arjuna. Jnana sangena cha anagha. So the bondage is, I know you don't know. So there the sattvic ahankara creeps in. Again, let's go to the collective. Page 141. Uh, 142. In terms of the collective, the truth-abiding, positive and compassionate outlook of sattva manifests in establishing harmony and sustaining order in civilization, remaining open to the progressive changes brought about by rajas, yet regulating these in the interest of well-being for all. However, sattva by itself cannot bring about evolutionary growth. For that, the creative genius and individual leadership of rajas is needed, and the stable habit-forming adherence of the collective to the new established order calls for the guna of tamas. Summary. Thus, we see that the process of evolutionary growth and the rise and fall of civilizations are all attributable to the dynamic play of the three gunas. It is difficult to see, though, except through spiritual insight, that divinity is quietly and invisibly at work behind the scenes in this dynamic play of creation, maintenance, and destruction, conjoined with evolution and involution. So we'll stop here. There's another topic. I think you can read that, and with that, this chapter ends. Thank you.